In this segment, I'm going to take a look at the Sequence Manager and using the Automatic Sequence Control tool. And the Automatic Sequence Control tool is found here on your left-hand toolbar, and your Sequence Manager is found here in your workspace. It's like a floating toolbar. And if you don't see your Sequence Manager in your workspace, it could be that you've closed it. It can be closed by just clicking on this little X on the top of this menu. So if I close it now, you'll see it disappears, and I can bring it back by going to my View drop-down menu and choosing Sequence Manager. So that opens it back up. Now, to demonstrate using this, I'm just going to simply choose the ellipse tool and go ahead and draw a shape. And there you can see that that shape shows up in the Sequence Manager in its own layer. So it's layer 1. Now, if I was to create some more shapes, so now I've got 3 different ovals. You'll see that all 3 of those ovals are in tray number 1 or layer number 1 of the Sequence Manager. Now, even if I make changes, like for example, these are all basically just dark blue running stitch shapes that have a light blue fill, but there's no fill been assigned to them yet. In other words, if I select this object and we look at the run stitch, the outline is set in run stitch and it's set for dark blue, and the fill tab is set for none, but it would be light blue. So for example, if I chose to apply a net fill, then I would have a light blue net fill with a dark blue run stitch outline. And that can be, doesn't have to be run stitch, it could be satin stitch, whatever you want. Now I'm going to go ahead and select one of these other circles and just change its color. So what if we had a red fill and a dark red outline, and we gave the red fill a net fill as well? And why don't we select the third one and just go with like a gold fill with a green outline, and we'll set that gold fill as a net fill as well, and whatever, change the outline to a satin steel, doesn't matter. So there's my 3 objects with the way they've been set, but notice that everything in the Sequence Manager is still just in one tray. Now when I mouse over the 3 objects, they get sort of highlighted, or it'll zoom in on whatever's in this tray. So when I do it like that, just mouse over it, it kind of zooms in, and if I take my mouse off, it goes away. But what you can do is use this tool here, the Automatic Sequence Control tool, to take what is a bunch of objects that are all in one layer and break them down into different layers. And that would be helpful. There'll be many different reasons and ways that you could use the Sequence Manager for working on designs, but just as an example, you could use it to control the sewing sequence of the design. So why don't I go ahead and run the tool? I'm going to click on the tool now, and it gives me, I guess, what's known as the optimizer, and you have some choices. So it's either nothing, just basically break this up exactly as it is, or you can have sort of simple or advanced, and where it's going to, if needed, and there may be no need to in the case of these objects, but in some designs, but depending on how they're layered, it may run some optimization strategy to how it's going to rearrange these objects. You know, usually it's from this by size and by layering of the objects that it decides. Nevertheless, you have 3 choices, and we'll just go ahead and leave it set on the first one and say OK. And so what you can see now is that it broke the single tray of the Sequence Manager to be 3 trays. And notice if I mouse over top of each one of these trays, it kind of highlights to the object that's found in that tray. So that's one of the things that you could use it for, is just helping you to, find a specific part of your design. I could also change the sewing order. So right now it's got the blue, and then it's got the green, and then it's got the red, and that's basically the way, the order that I created them in. But if you wanted to see the red sew before the green, you could just number of these trays. So that's how I can change my sewing order, and that's basically what the tool is meant for. Although, like I said, you may want to use that tool to help you select a specific object from your design, or select a group of objects by holding down, like the Shift key or the Control key. You could select multiple objects and quite specifically select them and make edits, whether it be to their type of stitch or their type of color. But nevertheless, that's the Sequence Manager, and There would be, okay, so a few more things that I can talk about here. This one, well, I guess we showed the X, that's for closing it. This one is a little triangle that you can use, and it kind of basically just minimizes it. Still leaves the toolbar sitting here, but it just rolls up what's inside, and I can click on that again to bring that back out. The next one is basically your question mark, which is the same as up here. It says, help, tell me more information, which this is actually a good place that you might want to do some reading. So when you click on this little help tool, whether it be here or up here, your mouse gets a little question mark. And right now, if I was to go and, let's say, click on the auto sequence control tool, it would open up the online help and give me the information that relates to that tool. So we could explore the automatic sequence or the manual embroidery sequence, and then under those there'll be more topics about using the sequence manager or the sequence tool or enabling automatic sequencing. So those are some great topics to follow up on in reading. Now, the one beside here, beside the question mark, this one says it's like maximize the sequence manager with a view of that object. If I click on that again, it'll show me the objects in the sequence manager, but it actually kind of shows them in relationship to their location of the design and size and relationship. So you'll find when you get involved with embroidery designs that have dozens and dozens of objects, that viewing them in the different ways kind of helps you find what you're looking for, I guess, is that. So you have two choices. It's either shown sort of smaller and within proportion to the design, or bigger, and so whatever the size of the object is, filling up the sequence manager with the view of that. That's kind of how it works. And so yeah, and this is where you'll find out information, like if it was an applique object, or right now you can see that these are ellipse, so it's got an ellipse fill and ellipse outline, so it tells you a little bit about what's in this tray, I guess. So yeah, that's a little bit about the sequence manager. You could probably learn a little bit more about it by reading up, but that's a good understanding of how it works and what the purpose is.